What is going on, everybody? Here we have another one.
Another one.
Another build.
Another one.
Another four-wheel drive.
Another one.
They've been ever so popular lately. As you can see, this one's a nice, lovely Raptor Liner 80 series. It's actually a really nice job, I've got to say. It looks nice up close. It actually does look quite good, but basically just a tidy old jigger, tidy old 80 series. We've got ourselves a 1FZ in this thing, manual, and it is here for a 6-litre LS conversion. Now, this customer supplied his own engine, his own conversion gear. Basically, he's supplying most of the stuff. Along with the conversion, we're also doing a few other things like part-time four-wheel drive kit and things like that. So trying to get this thing a little bit more sorted for him. He does enjoy off-roading quite a bit. So yeah, get this thing making some bloody grunt with a 6-litre V8. So the 6-litre that he supplied is a rectangle port 6-litre that has already been refreshed or completely reconditioned elsewhere. Apparently he bought it off a person who reconditioned it ready to go into a patrol. That being said, the cam that they've put in the 6-litre that he's got, it makes absolutely no sense to us why someone would put that cam in a four-wheel drive. It's the Crow Cam's 1250 grind, which a lot of you who watch this channel quite a bit would be very familiar with the fact that it's actually my favourite cam for cathedral port LSs. It's a really, really great grind, but it's the sort of cam that we'd put in like an aggressive street car. It is a very aggressive cam. It's certainly not something that we would spec for a four-wheel drive. It's far too aggressive. So it's going to be quite peaky, we predict. But the owners, we sort of expressed our concerns to the owner about the cam selection that's in the engine, and his decision is to just run with it and see how it goes, rather than swap the cam out. So he'd rather just see what it's going to be like. I mean, the fact is, it is a rectangle port and it's in a 6-litre, so you know, generally I'll stick that 1250 into a cathedral port 5.7. So the fact that we've got extra capacity and a bit more head flow, maybe it'll surprise us. Maybe that cam in that configuration will actually be a bit different to what we expect. So either way, we're more than happy to run it in there and just see how it goes. Hopefully it goes well. It definitely will make power. It'll absolutely haul ass. Just as to whether whereabouts in the RPM range that's going to be another story, but we will find out. So that's pretty much the go. We've got all this stuff down in the other shed ready to go in this thing, so hopefully a nice quick little job for us. I probably definitely shouldn't have just said that just now, but let's see how we can go with it. So yeah, another one, yet another one. Builds everywhere. Righto guys, as you can see, we've got an empty hull. Got the motor out yesterday afternoon. It's one of those cars that must have been built by Popeye. Everything on it was so freaking tight that it took way longer than it should have, but it's out. 1FZ's over here on the tyres because we don't have a pallet for it at the moment. Got here this morning, didn't realise, well, we did realise, we just forgot that there is a scheduled power outage here today. So we've got no power, which means we can't do any fabrication or anything else we really wanted to do today, but that's all right because the next thing is to really start just going through all of this stuff for this conversion. So this here is another conversion where the customer has supplied everything, or what they believe is everything. It's another one of those things, you know, after the last one we did in this way, we sort of swore we'd never do it again. Like a conversion where the customer supplies everything, but we were just pretty clear with him that obviously we gave him an estimate of price based on the fact that everything in fact was here and that nothing has been missed. And it's pretty much time to figure out whether anything's been missed or if everything is in fact here. So always exciting stuff. So the engine we've got here, as I talked about at the start, not the cam we'd spec for one, but we're going to see how it goes. The customer just wants to pretty much chuck it in and see how it actually performs. So engine's already been reconditioned, it's ready to go. All we've got to do is swap the sump over. I believe that's the sump there. So we just got to put the conversion sump on it, see what else is here, and yeah, move into it that way. Got a new clutch, obviously. One of these boxes is going to be a bell housing. We've got some thermos here. Never heard of them. Tongyang. So we'll see how these go. In our experience, like Chinese branded thermos usually just don't move enough air. Being that this thing's aspirated though, it might be all right though, but we'll give them a go. We're always willing to give new things a go. So hopefully they're okay. I believe one of these boxes will be part-time front hubs, which we will also be installing at some point. But yeah, I'm gonna start going through this stuff and have a look what's here. Righto guys, as expected, there's a bit missing. This is pretty uncool as well, front of the crank. is pretty cooked. I'm probably gonna have to take this front cover off and linish that and try and clean it up properly. Because otherwise, yeah, that's not gonna be fun for the balancer to go on. So a few things like that, which we'll have to look at fixing up. We definitely don't have an accelerator pedal, which is a problem. We need one. And we don't have a alternator bracket, which we also need as well. Even though this thing's going high mount alternator, the kit still uses the alternator bracket for a idler. So we definitely still need one. Apart from that, Mark's gear is here in abundance. Gone full kit and caboodle with this thing. There's plenty of stuff here we're probably not going to use that we don't need. But that does seem to happen. Not the first time. But yeah, apart from that, it's all looking pretty good. So basically we'll get this engine on a stand, get the sump swapped over, try and fix this crank up, linish it up a bit, get the sensors and everything together. Start getting the motor together with all our accessories and then start looking at getting it in the car. Obviously first things first, there's still a lot to do in this engine bay. We still have a lot of stuff to strip out and sort out as far as the wiring. You know, like a lot of this engine loom stuff we can try and get out of here. Just obviously got to keep the gearbox loom there and find the pin out for that so that we can wire that up with the loom. You know, all that sort of thing, all the fun stuff. But yeah, we're definitely gonna have to try and find an accelerator pedal and an alternator bracket for starters. So alternator bracket's probably gonna hold us up. Can't really get this in the car without it. We've got a few other 6 litres here that we can probably rob one off as long as he's happy to get us one ASAP to replace one of them, but that way it might at least not hold us up, which is probably a good thing. So we'll see how we go with it. The other thing is obviously we've got here just a standard 6 litre alternator, which we are also not going to use because these newer VE alternators, they have the F-type smart charge modules in them, which if you remove, it's controlled by the BCM in the car in the Commodore. So if you try and use them in a conversion and you don't have a BCM to control the charge voltage, they overcharge. They charge at about 15.5 volts and they start causing issues. So that's not going to get used either. So we're going to have to buy an LS1 alternator. They just got a regular charge reg in them. Makes it way simpler. You just change the plug on the loom and it's happy days from there. Anyway, first things first, get this on a stand so we can get started on it. Get this off the pallet so that we can put his 1FZ on this pallet because we were pretty much out of pallets. We'll strap that up, put all his 1FZ related stuff that's not going back in the car back on the pallet and basically have that ready for him to pick up and we can actually get that out of the shed so it's not in our way because we are getting very, very cramped in here. Righto guys, so another sort of major issue that we've come across. So I pulled the sump off obviously to do the sump, and like I said, I was going to pull the front cover off to linish the crank, which I did, clean that up. The balancer on the seal surface was also really not very nice, so I'll linish that all up as well. But what I noticed obviously is they've gone double row timing chain in this thing, which is all well and good, but they've also put LSA, like a factory high volume pump on it. And obviously we build LSs a lot. I know exactly what this setup is and what it does. And cleaning up the balancer, I noticed, obviously it's off an L98. The balancer is different to the LSA, obviously, but also it's different to the DOD balancers. And when you go to dual row timing chain, and then the factory high volume pump, which is also wider than a factory standard pump, what happens is this is all too long on the crank snout, and the back of the balancer actually contacts the front cover on the pump. And what it does is when you tighten it like this and you put it on the engine, it pretty much just contacts the front of the housing and locks it solid. You can't turn this over. It's not nice at all. So basically they've supplied him the wrong balancer for what they've done on the setup with the high volume and the dual row. So, you know, there's ways around it. We can get this thing in a lathe. It's pretty hard with these things in a lathe because they're not centered all the time. So it's pretty shoddy in a lathe. So it's a lot nicer just to use the right balancer. But I'll let him know, see what he wants to do. But we can modify it. It's just going to obviously be more time to make it work. We've done it before on other setups. But anyway, that's just something I noticed. So I thought I'd chuck it on and check it with the cover still off. So I just used an old stock balancer bolt just to check it. They've given him a new ARP one. But yeah, just a little bit of an oversight from whoever built the engine. Or I don't know that. I can't actually say that because I don't know who actually built the engine and whether the people that this customer bought the engine off were the ones that built it or whether they just gave him the Rico engine and chucked in a balancer. So, you know, it not necessarily whoever built the engine, just a matter of somewhere along the way, there's been a mix-up and he's been supplied the wrong balancer for the setup. It could just been whoever built it didn't know, but yeah, I'm not sure. Don't know that is what I'm saying, because it is a bit of a funny issue, which it's caught us out before. It's a pretty easy mistake to make. So anyway, I'll have to sort that out, but for now I'll pull that balancer back off. That front cover can go back on. They've gone dual row, they haven't put a wedge in, which isn't really a big deal. I'm not going to bother pulling the pump off. I'm not going that far with it. I just wanted to check that pretty much and clean up that crank snout, which is now fine. But yeah, happy days. Get this thing back together. Righto, boys and girls, so here we are. It's about as far as I can get with this thing at the moment. So because it's dual row chain, the pickup needs to be modified quite severely. You have to elongate these holes that bolt it to the main cap so that it can actually slide back, or forward in this case, to actually sit in the housing of the pump properly, because the whole pump's been offset forwards on the crank snout. So that has to be modified, which I can't do without any power. Dial grinder uses the compressor, so no power, no can do. Which means I can't get the sump on, and without power we've got no internet or anything here, any phone service, so I can't actually even talk to the customer right now about what he wants to do about that balancer. But at this stage I think the easiest way to do is for us just to quickly do a bit of a chamfer on the balancer that's where it's contacting, and also just a little bit of a clearance on the pump housing on the cover here. So pull this cover off and just clearance it out a bit. So basically what happens, I'll show you this. Look at this balancer here. So this edge, stop turning. This edge that my finger's on the L98 and LS3 is very square, like this one. It's basically just a square edge, you see that? And once you do this with the high volume pump, which is, like I said, wider, and the dual row chain, which steps it off again, what happens is that edge on the balancer contacts this inside edge on the pump cover. And obviously that causes a big problem. If you look at the DOD balancers off the L76 and L77, you actually find that they're more of like a rounded edge. That edge is not square. And you'll find the same thing with LSA balancers, albeit they're obviously very different. But it is something to be mindful of and be careful of. I've never seen an engine, we've never run an engine like that. I think we had the first one that we figured it out. The engine was already in the car and we had to pull it back out. But we've never sort of missed it to the point where we run an engine like that, but I can't imagine that's very nice at all. Because you feel it when you tighten the balancer up and it's all the way pushed back where it's meant to be, and then all of a sudden you can't turn the motor over. So it's yeah, it's not nice, it's not very good. Something to watch out for if you are doing this sort of thing. So lucky we have made the mistake before and picked it up now before it sort of went any further, but I've got to talk to the owner about what he wants to do, whether he wants us to do those bits of modifications. I don't know whether pulling the front cover off the pump, maybe, I don't know if this thing came with any warranty or anything like that. I don't know if maybe that's going to maybe void some startup warranty. You know, I don't want to just go ahead and do it in case I mess up some warranty or something like that. So I want to talk to him first. So for now, it's just going to be like this. I'll just push this into the engine room. It can sit in there until the power comes back on and I can talk to him and we can make a decision. We actually have to do a bit of modification to the rocker covers as well to suit the high mount accessory kits, which again, need power for. So sort of at a stalemate with a lot of this stuff. Start having a look at the car and seeing what I can pull out as far as what doesn't need to be there. I sort of need internet. I want to do some research and make sure that the factory ECU isn't going to need to be retained for some sort of reason. Make sure there's not something in the car that is going to be still requiring the factory ECU to work, which again, no internet, can't really do any research right now, so yes. Righto guys, so we did actually get power back on, so I did manage to modify this oil pickup. So as you can see, irrigated the holes so that it actually sits on the winner's tray properly. So because this is double row and we've had to modify the pickup to fit it, I decided to put one of our billet oil pickup girdles on it, braces. So this just ensures that it always keeps that pickup nice and flat and flush on the pump and keeps that sealed, so it doesn't have can't suck any air or anything like that. So I always do that up first before I do these up as well, because this being so long it does twist and stuff. So always make sure that you seal into the pump is the first thing that's perfect, because that's where you're going to suck air and cause problems if you don't do it right. So from here, smack these on. Obviously after I modified this, gave it another completely good clean out. The other thing about having power back obviously is I was able to actually get onto the owner about the issues that we've had. He's pretty keen just to source the correct balancer. So because he supplied all the Marks gear, I sort of asked him if they sent him instructions with the kit as well, because the other thing we noticed when we're going through it is that in all of the conversion stuff, the flywheel and everything that's there's no ring gear. So it would appear to me like the kit is designed to be used with like a LS, maybe a flex plate, just so that we've got a ring gear for the starter, but I'm not sure. So I've hit up Marks to get the instructions from them. And once I got the instructions for them and I know whether we need a flex plate, then I'll hit up the people who the owner got this engine off, and the rest of the gear that he was meant to get for the conversion, and sort of let them know exactly what's missing and what we need, because that way I'll be able to let them know if we need a flex plate or not. But obviously we need a balancer bracket, not a balancer bracket. We need the correct balancer, and we need a alternator bracket and a go pedal though. So anyway. Alright guys, so I can actually give you a bit more of an illustration of what I was talking about with these balancers being wrong, because I nearly forgot, but I actually do have an L97 balancer here off another 6 litre that we're doing for another bloke a bit later on. But so you can see this is the L98 balancer, and you can see that step, how it's very much just like a step, a right angle. And this is the L77 balancer, the DOD balancer, and you can see, I just unmasked it from when I painted this up, but you can see how that's way more of a rounded edge to sit inside that oil pump the way it's supposed to. So that is the difference in the two, and that is why your L98 LS3 balancers do not fit properly when you go to that sort of a setup. We've never found it to be an issue as long as you're staying single row, or even if you go double row and just use a regular pump. We've never found any issue with either of those setups, but it's just that combination of going dual row plus going high volume pump plus trying to use an LS3 old L98 balancer. That's when it becomes an issue, which is the exact situation we're in. So anyway, little bits of trivia for you. Yesterday when we got power back, I did trim this up for the fans as well, and I trimmed just the outer edges off the fan setup, and you can see how well that fits. It sits in each one of these captive things perfectly. It sits right against the top of the tank perfectly. Like I said, just need a little bit of high density foam to fill the gaps on the sides, and make a bracket from here to that, and it's happy days. So fans fit that well. Flynn levers his toys all over the bloody shed. How's we got 1, 2, 3 1FZs just sitting on the shed floor at the moment. Who'd have ever thought? Anyway, I got the instructions for the kit from Marks this morning. They sent through everything, which was freaking awesome, and confirmed we do require a stock LS flex plate for a ring gear. That's how the kit works. One thing I didn't know before as well that I found out is that they actually recommend that we move the whole gearbox, engine, everything, you know, transfer case, the whole lot forward 25mm to help with clearance on the firewall, which isn't a big deal. All you have to do with these things, because the tail shafts are collapsible and extendable, 25mm is not a huge deal. All we have to do is pull the gearbox cross member out, oval the holes out so the whole thing can come forward, and we don't have to remake any tail shafts or anything. It's still fine. But yeah, going through their instructions there. So confirming that, I've actually tried to get hold of the people that the owner bought the engine and stuff off to try and get what's missing, now that we've confirmed exactly what we need. So anyway, hopefully they get back to me soon. Righto guys, so I still haven't been able to get onto the people that the owner actually got all this stuff from to try and sort out what is missing. But at the end of the day, everything that's missing we do have here. It's just that I need to replace it before I need it for those jobs. But to save us holding up this particular conversion for however long it's going to take, because today is Friday afternoon and I don't want to be waiting all weekend for an answer sort of thing. So I'm going to go ahead and use the stuff we've got to get this happening and get this engine sealed back up, and continue on with getting this happening, and hopefully we can just replace that at a later date when we can get it off the people that he was supposed to get it off. So next thing is clean out the sump. I never just whack these sumps straight on out of the box. I always give them a clean up, so we'll clean that out. Alright guys, so I'm actually quite literally using the balancer that I used for an example before, just because the engine that this balancer is needed to go on is not going to be built for quite a few weeks, so there's plenty of time to replace it. That being said, the engine that this is going on is also not getting dual row and high volume pump, so I could probably actually use the balancer that didn't fit this on the engine that this one was for, and it'll probably be fine. So if it does have to go that way, it's fine. But we're actually going to put this balancer on, and we use the balancer to center the seal before we tighten up the front cover. Also with that off, we can see exactly what's going on in there, which should be fine because I've done this before. And what I'm actually using here is an actual tool that Airflow makes for installing LS balancers. The idea is obviously this screws into the crank, and then you're screwing this piece to actually push the balancer onto the crank, which means you're not actually relying on the threads in the crank snout to try and draw the balancer in, which you know, obviously that can end pretty bad. So the idea of this is to save the threads in the end of the crank. So we'll get this on, and it should be happy days. So there you go guys, that's with this balancer on it, all the way done up tight. It's all the way home, and she just turns over easy as it should. So just yeah, like I said, it's just a little trick for new players. It's a very easy thing to miss, very easy thing to overlook, and for the most part, if you hadn't been in this exact position before, you would probably never even bother to look and understand that there are two different types of balancers, but there is, and this is why. Ta-da! New sump on, ready to slap his ARP balancer bolt in there, and but anyway, we'll flip it over. I'm going to leave it in here while I sort out a lot of the high mount accessory stuff, because I actually have to take the covers off and modify them, so I'd rather have it, you know, in our purpose-built, controlled environment while all those covers are open. So this cover is obviously leaking, so have a look at that when I get it off. Alright, all nice and beautiful and clean with new seals under here. That's awesome. It's got the Crow, just the generic white box trunnion kit, which is you know, it's a lot better than standard trunnions, so all looks nice and clean under there, which is wicked. So for this particular Marks setup, which is the same that we did on the 6L80 GQ that we built, you actually swap the driver and passenger side rocker covers so that the filler is actually at the back on this one. And the reason to do that is because you end up with an accessory in the lay on each side on the front. So first things first, you have to modify the edge of the cover so that it's flush with the flat side of the head. Because of the plate that actually sits on there, you can't have that protruding out the side, it gets in the way. So you just got to flatten that off on both of them. And then on this one here, we actually have to get rid of this mounting bracket here for the coil bracket. It has to go because I'm pretty sure this side must be the AC. The AC sits sort of further back than it would normally. So you get rid of that, you actually cut this coil bracket short, and they actually provide with a mounting solution for the last coil, which works fine. So fairly simple stuff. I just get on the flappy wheel and the die grinder, cap that off with the grinder, clean them up with the flappy wheel. They look factory, and it's all happy days. So we'll go do that outside the engine room, obviously, and clean these up, and then they can go back on. There you go guys, that's what I'm talking about. Bit of clearance, get rid of that out of the way. Same on this side, cleaned up. So I think the seals can go back in these and they can pretty much go on. So you're starting to get a bit of an idea of the picture at the moment. This is actually different to the one we did on the GQ, because the one on the GQ, they were swapped around. We had the, I'm sure we had the AC up this end and the alt up that end. Anyway, this isn't the alt we're going to be using. This is the Gen 4 alt, as I explained before, but I've just chucked it on there just for illustrative purposes so we can see where we're going to be as far as clearance and everything else goes. So just going to modify the water pump and the tensioner now. They have to be modified. Marks actually give you like templates to bolt up to actually modify them the way they're supposed to be. That's the other thing, guys. All of this Mark stuff always comes with such good, clear, precise and very in-depth instructions. It's super easy to follow. Yeah, they're really good like that, honestly. The Mark stuff is expensive, but I can't rate it highly enough as far as instructional, very clear, and just bolts up and works. Like hardly ever, I can't think of any time I've ever had to modify something from Marks to make it work. It's expensive, but it's worth it, guys. You would have seen just about 90% of the conversions that we do on this channel, we use Marks stuff just for that fact. It saves so much time being able to just bolt it up and go, as well as obviously coming with such clear instructions that it saves time. You don't have to really figure anything out. You just follow the instructions, like putting Lego together. It's very rare that we will opt for another brand for a conversion, and it's only for certain circumstances. But anyway, as you can see, this is why we needed the OEM alternator bracket, because it houses this idler, which is required to get the right angle on the crank pulley for the belt. So even though we go to high mount accessories, you still need this bracket. Also guys, you remove the filler neck and just put the cap straight into the cover. There is still a little thing there, it works fine. Just yeah, like that. So these are your little templates with the hardware they give you. As you can see, there's a little thing. It's annoying, that bolt's probably a bit too big, I might have to nick that, but they give you a little template of where it has to be clear, so we have to diagram this out of that, and it's the same for the tensioner. They give you that little bracket to chuck in there, and you've got that there that has to be clear, so we have to pretty much diagram that so it's straight through, and I'll show you when we go to put it on the car. It'll make a lot of sense when you can see why. Alright guys, huzzah, that's how she goes. Happy days. Coming together, coil packs on. So the instructions lied to me, just after I was talking them up so much. But when you have the AC on this side, obviously the pump's a lot further back than the alt, and you have to trim this coil bracket there, and they give you another bracket which comes on here, which moves the coil back here, and it works awesome. And that's what the instructions told me to do. The instructions told me to cut that there. So I did on another bracket, and was going through all the Marks gear and realised that they didn't supply the other little bracket to remount the coil. So then I test fitted it, which I should have done before I even cut anything. That's my own fault. And yeah, this does fit with just a little bit of a trimming off that edge. The full coil bracket fits with the coil in the stock location, so that's fine. So anyway, found another coil bracket and fixed that up. But yeah, and then there's another mount for this, which I'll go probably sort out now, and there should be another hose. We'll get that sorted as well. Oh, and yeah, you can see where I capped that. Alright, so that's how that goes. That moves your reservoir up back here with a longer bit of hose there. Anyway guys, I think that can probably be an episode one for the Big 80, Big Shady 80. Thanks for watching episode 1. We'll kick off a new episode tomorrow, and we'll start looking at getting further with this thing and trying to get it in the car ASAP. Still have to pull the gearbox crossmember out and elongate the holes to move the whole lot forward, so that still has to happen tomorrow, so there's still a bit of work to go. But really want to get this in the car very soon so that we can get the headers on it, so that we can really map out what we're going to do for an exhaust for this thing, so that we can get that material ordered. But apart from that, just about everything else should be here, so the rest of it's happy days. So thanks for watching as always guys. Hope you're enjoying another LS conversion on a 4-wheel drive. I certainly am. I love this sort of work. LS converting 4-wheel drives, I'd be happy to do it all the time. Happy days. So thanks for watching. See you on the next one. Peace out. See you. Bye.